Hello, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Samuel Kasumi. I'm the Managing Director of Inclusive Boards. Thank you so much for joining us for the first in a series of webinars focused on supporting sport governing bodies and sport organisations seeking to improve or maintain diversity at board level. Very quickly, just to give you a context as to why we are doing these webinars. If you have a read of the Code for Sport Governance, you'll find that Principle 2 states organisations should recruit and engage people with appropriate diversity, independence, skills, experiences and knowledge to take effective decisions that further the organisation's goals. And Section 2.1 A specifically asks all organisations to adopt a target of and take all appropriate actions to encourage a minimum of 30% of each gender on its board. So there's the context within which we are currently operating. You're not going to hear too much from me. I'm going to hand it over to the experts. So today we have two very special guest speakers. The first is Rachel Tranter, who's the Executive Director at Women on Boards. And shortly after, you'll also hear from Tracy Watkinson, who's currently Chair of England Handball, amongst many other things. So over to you, Rachel.
Thank you, Samuel, and Inclusive Boards, obviously, for asking Women on Boards to be part of this webinar. It's an absolute pleasure. By way of introduction, as Samuel said, my name is Rachel Tranter. I'm one of the founding directors of Women on Boards. I'm also an independent non-executive with the Amateur FA, and I'm also an independent panel member for the Ministry of Justice Public Appointments team. So let's take a look at the agenda for today. In terms of what WOB and Tracy are going to do between us, I'll give you an introduction to WOB, what we do, a brief bit of background to put us into context. I'll give you some information about how we help individuals, the individuals that could potentially be sport board ready, the WOB vacancy board, which I suspect will be of most interest to you. And I'll also tell you a little bit about, I guess, the work we've done with the sports sector. And then I'll be chatting with Tracy about her journey onto sports boards. So in terms of WOB, you'll hear me say WOB, Women on Boards. We use both names. We are a network for change. We began in Australia in 2001 on the back of the Sydney Olympics, when the Australian government spotted the lack of women on sports boards. Ruth Med, Claire Braund were asked to look at this, and they started to look at the lack of diversity across all boards, and the WOB journey began. We set up in the UK in 2012 in the wake of Lord Davis's first review on the lack of women on all boards in the UK. We're a private company, but in effect we're run as a social enterprise. We now have around 50,000 members across Australia, the UK, and other parts of Asia. Our aim is simple: to improve the number of women on boards and in leadership roles. We do this by providing information and support. Information about what goes on in the boardroom, and support to access the right roles and indeed at interview stage. We support men and women, but we feel that minorities need support, and in this case it still would appear to be more often women. So as I say, simple message: we're lowering the barriers to entry to the boardroom. We provide information and training. We tell our members what goes on in the boardroom. How would they know if they've never been there? Vacancies. Our mission is to make our members aware of as many NED opportunities as we possibly can. Sport is something that we cover and we always have, and we're extremely passionate about it. In particular, it's my area of interest. We're proud of how many vacancies we've posted across all sectors to date, around about 15,000, but I'll tell you more about that in a little while. Individual support, we look at a member's board CV. There's nothing quite like having a brilliant executive CV, but of course you've got to convert that into a board CV. We tell them whether we recognise their board skills from looking at that CV, and we guide them on how to convert it. Connections, it's a vital piece of our work. We connect our members when they've had an interview to somebody in our network who is on a similar board. So a sports candidate who comes to us and they say they've got an interview, recently somebody came to me and said they've got an interview at the BOA, well, we would connect them to somebody like Tracy, Lisa Wainwright, Claire Henderson. These are all top people who are in the sports world who are also part of Women on Boards, so that there is that transferability from the sector into the WOB network. Advocacy, this is a massive piece of our work. We're not campaigners, but we do feel in a good position to make our voices heard on behalf of our members. So in terms of social impact, as I say, it's a massive piece of what we do. We've written 2 reports, Gender Balance in Global Sport, where we are shining the spotlight on the lack of diversity on sports boards, all sports boards, not the UK, across the globe, and we are determined to try and make a difference there. We constantly are working with all the government departments, and it's really inspiring to see that they are making huge progress in terms of getting balance on those boards, and we've been very involved in the gender pay gap issues. We also actually work, one point I actually probably also want to mention here, it's important to recognise that we work with the headhunters, and we work with any headhunters in the sports space. We believe that there's still not enough roles publicly advertised, and I suspect this is true in sport as it is in any sector. So how do we actually help our members? It's worth me just introducing some of the areas that we do in this area. Getting started, we tend to split it into 3 areas: getting started, getting there, getting serious, and then there's the leadership piece, which is running in parallel. Getting started, whether somebody already has a board role or if they're looking to take on their first position, we help them get started from where they are today through our Getting Started workshop, our boardroom insights events, which are there to inform and inspire about board opportunities across the sectors. We've done about 5 boardroom insights, I think, off the top of my head, on sports, where we get brilliant panel members. Tracy's been a panel member, Claire Henderson's been a panel member. We've had many people from the world of sport stand up, talk about their journeys to the boardroom, and inspire our members to go away and think about joining a sports board. That Getting Started zone, we're helping people, we're encouraging people to complete their profile, thinking about their board value add. And obviously we're talking about getting more women on sports boards. Well, this workshop, funny enough, it's good for people who are starting to think about, are they board ready? But it's also would be quite interesting to think, have you got people in your organisations that could be thinking about positions outside the world of sport that could help them within their sporting careers? The Getting There piece, we've got an extremely active vacancy board with over 200 vacancies listed on the site each week for members to browse. For those who want to sit for 3.5 hours and write a board CV, we do the board CV masterclass. And we provide pre-interview connections, as I mentioned earlier, to somebody in our network or to a WOB director. In the sports space, increasingly, I provide support to people purely because I sit on the board of the AFA. Getting serious, that's when people may well already be on boards and they're starting to think about, I guess, getting more serious about FTSE level boards. We run breakfast, all sorts. So hopefully you're getting a flavour for the type of work we do for people who may then be sports board ready. So the vacancy board, I run this. When I first started it 6 years ago, I genuinely worried about where these positions were going to come from. No need to have worried. There are hundreds and hundreds of board roles out there. The challenge, as you will recognise in your sector, the challenge really is to find them, to convince some they ought to be transparent, and to encourage our members to continuously look and to keep applying. It's amazing how many times you talk to people, they get going, they don't get the first role, and then they stop. Or equally, I'll talk to an organisation, they'll start advertising positions on our board. If they don't get somebody immediately, they stop. So our challenge is to keep the process going. We get the vacancies from the public domain, from headhunters, and most importantly, actually, from members, which I'm encouraged to see is increasing month by month. We know to look on the UK sports job page, but my question, which I would throw over you to be starting to think about, is where else should we be looking? I would like to see sports bodies post many more roles directly on our vacancy board as an additional channel. You've got all to gain, and to be honest, nothing to lose by doing that. It is free to advertise. We send out weekly emails profiling the roles we think could be of interest to our members. I always highlight top sports roles because I'm a bit biased. We encourage people to apply, but we need the roles on our website as soon as they are live, not when there's only 2 weeks left. We have a sports marketplace where we encourage people to register an interest in sport, and we can tell them not just about roles, but also about networking events that organisations might be running. So here is an example I pulled off the other day, some top roles that we've got on the website at the moment in the sports sector. So you can see this is the initial page that somebody will see. They just have to, subscribers just have to log in, tap in, Table Tennis Wales. There's enough information there to tell them it's a trustee position, and then behind that will be some information just saying that Table Tennis Wales are looking for whatever it might be. I couldn't tell you what that one is without going into the website, but let's say we will set the criteria and it will be risk, governance, strategy, finance. And if somebody's interested, they just have to take the contact details and get going. The key thing to recognise here is we're not a headhunter, we are an intermediary. So we are there to encourage our members to look at your roles, and it may be that you're the contact, or it might be that you're working with Search, in which case Search is the contact. So people don't apply through Women on Boards, people just get access to roles. We have about 5,000 subscribers who will be looking at these roles. So what I pulled together here are what we call our sporting success stories. So you may be looking at these and you may recognise some. They may be on organisations that you work with or represent. Success to us it's basically what we're most proud of. We have the people with the skills and we have the way of sharing roles. And all of these people have had the kind of support from WOB that I mentioned earlier. It may be that we posted the role that they got. It doesn't matter whether it was on our website or not. If they are a subscriber to Women on Boards, they'll have had CV support. They will have had interview support. They may have just come to an event and been inspired to think about going on a sports board. That to us is success. So this is just some of the names off a very long list of people. Elizabeth Jenkin, I'll just mention, that was brilliant. She saw the FA Women's Football Board role on our website. She applied, she got the interview. I can't remember who gave her interview support, but somebody did from our network. She got the role. And then last year when Tracy and Credit Suisse very kindly hosted an event for us on sports boards, Elizabeth came back and sat on that panel and talked about the journey. So WOB is quite a circular journey in many respects. So before I bring Tracy in, Samuel asked me just to think about some of the barriers to joining a sports board. And this is really just my thoughts. We know, and again, just from my experience of what I do, we know that Sport England and UK Sport, they are continuing to encourage better balanced boards, and available funding to a large extent will depend upon adhering to fit and proper governance. But in my experience, I guess I'd point to these areas which I suspect are still creating challenges. Transparency in advertising. I mentioned this. We still don't see enough sports bodies using all of the advertising channels available to them. Dare I say that advertising on your own website is not enough if you want to broaden your candidate pool away from your membership. Governance structures. I mean, look, I'm talking to people who understand this. However, the issue remains for many sports organisations, unless they have the articles that allow, a sports body can't introduce independence or move away from council-led appointments. I'm seeing this at the AFA, and to see it in real life is fascinating. It's eye-opening. So getting the right structure in place, which enables the sports body to look outside the sport of outside the world of sport, I guess is vital. Culture. I guess I'd almost throw this back to you in the Q&A session and ask you the question: is your organisational culture encouraging across the genders and diverse talent pools? I don't know. Is there still a culture of served your time in sport in some organisations, and does this stand in the way of diversity? Are Women's Sports Board ready? We believe they are. We believe if somebody wants to go on a sports board, all they have to do is define their skills, know the opportunities, and have the support to apply. So many people say women aren't ready. I would absolutely challenge that. Interview panels are really important. The public sector are doing a brilliant job of getting their panels gender balanced. So don't for 1 minute think that that's not important. If you want to get the right balance, you've got to be interviewed by the right balance. So they're just a few thoughts of mine, but very happy to talk about it in a little while. So now I think we've heard enough of me. I am delighted to be joined today by Tracy Watkinson, someone who I've known since the very beginning of Women on Boards. So Tracy, hopefully, are you online?
I'm here.
Brilliant.
Yes, hi Rachel.
Hi, how are you doing?
Good, hello everyone.
So first of all, let me do a brief introduction to those of you who don't know Tracy. Tracy is a COO for the UK service company, as well as Programme Director for Strategic Change Initiatives at Credit Suisse. Tracy's been at Credit Suisse for 5.5 years, and prior to that she was at UBS, which is where we in fact first met. UBS is a corporate subscriber of WOB, and funnily enough now is Credit Suisse. So no coincidence that Tracy has been employed by one and is employed by the other, and we have a fantastic relationship with both. In 2012, Tracy joined the board of Volleyball England, where she became an independent non-executive. And in 2017, Tracy was elected onto the board of England Handball, where she is currently chair. So, Tracy, I'm going to ask you a few questions, if I may. Question one, maybe can we begin with you telling the audience exactly how the volleyball role came about? Where were you in your career? Where did you see the role? Why did you apply? Just basic takes on the journey, if you could.
Sure. So, I mean, I guess even just the why I even applied and where I was is probably the starting point in my mind. So I was director level in my investment banking career. I knew I wanted to continue to progress within my corporate career, but I also knew I always wanted to have a board portfolio career, I guess, at the end of my working life. So it was always about, in my mind, the timing as to when I started to build up board experience such that it could actually transition and become one and the same as my main career. I genuinely held a belief that I had to get to board level within my professional career to be viable for any other company to see me at that level. And it was meeting yourselves and women on boards that just completely took that myth away and made me realise I had enough experience and skills as a director with experience in the financial sector to add value to other companies outside of that sector in a non-exec director role. So that was a real light bulb moment that actually the timing was now, and I didn't need to wait sort of another 5 years in my own career. And being lucky enough to be in a firm that was a corporate subscriber, I just immediately got access to that vacancy board that Rachel described earlier, and was overwhelmed really with the choice. It was like being in a sweet shop. I mean, there was just such a variety of different organisations that just wanted independent NEDs. And it really opened my eyes outside of the bubble of working in investment banking, to be honest. And so it became all very exciting. I think probably I would describe for the first few weeks of scrolling through the job board. And then I became a little bit smarter, more targeted. And I really went through the thinking of, this is extra things and work I need to fit into my life. It's volunteering. I need to have a genuine interest. And that's really how I narrowed it down and settled down on the Volleyball England role that was being advertised. I played volleyball very seriously as a child, but not really since then. In a working life perspective, I've just never really been able to fit it in. So the content resonated with me. And it was also the only sport I went to go and see at the 2012 Olympics. So there was a little bit of recent, I guess, touch point with the sport in my mind at that point of applying. But I very much felt like I was quite a wild card of the applicants that I thought they probably would have. The job description listed numerous skills of which I didn't match the vast majority. So there's a bit of a learning there, I would say, and a sharing with you all of, I know now, sat on a board, it's all about doing your skills gap assessment, and it's all about putting the wish list of all the skills out there on the job advert. But it does turn women off if we don't feel like we can tick every one of those. There's a lot of research to prove that point, as well as for me, personal experience of you have to be even braver and even stronger to bother to put your your application in when you just think, oh, I only have this one, I don't have that. But I did go for it. So I created my board CV, sent in my application, and then reached out to women on boards for advice on a sector I knew nothing about from a governance or how it was structured. And then network really helped me get access to some great women who educated me, and talked me through how the interplay between Sport England, UK Sport, NGB, CSPs, etc. all works, which was just really fascinating for me, as well as hugely prepped me for then going into the interview. Yes, much to my surprise, I got the role. So it was a time where Volleyball England were actually reconstructing their board to have independent NEDs. So they were specifically interviewing for in fact, 2 independent NED roles. From their interviewing process, they identified 3 of us they wanted. So similar to a point Rachel was making about the articles, the NGB went back to the AGM to approve a change in the articles to expand the size of the board so that they could bring all 3 independent NEDs in, because they felt that we each brought such different skills that they really needed at that point in time for the organisation. So sometimes it's that, being flexible for your own benefit at a point in time.
Thank you. So as someone who obviously works in the financial services sector, what do you think you brought to the board, and what did it mean to be independent?
Being honest, I think there was something about pace and energy at the start. That's what I felt like I was quite different, to the point where I really felt very different. So the irony was, I think I sort of, sped them up a bit with my pace and energy of an environment that's kind of all I've known. But equally, when I look back over my tenure in that board role, I think actually I slowed down a bit. So I think there's benefits on both sides of that for the right reasons. The independent side, I did not know the sport. As I say, I had an interest in sport from playing as a child, but I really did not know the sport, how it was really run or set up. So the positive of that was I just was never bogged down in the politics, the history, the how things had always been done before. And I could just have a very easy, straightforward, open style and focus very objectively on achieving the strategy. And I just constantly asked questions, to be honest. Why are we doing this? Are we sure that we should do that? Why have we done that before? And you know, it was a really great welcoming board who were very accommodating of that different style, I guess, having gone through that decision to open it up to independent NEDs. And a lot of historic approaches changed off the back of those sort of questioning.
Do you think it helped that you weren't alone when you joined, though, as an independent?
I think definitely. Yeah, and also an extremely great induction process led by the CEO, Lisa Wainwright. Then, because it is scary coming in as an independent. You don't know any acronyms. You don't, you know, and you do feel stupid all the time when conversation's happening because you just don't know enough.
Yeah.
So the grounding of a really detailed induction before it helps as much as anything can help. Yeah.
So over the 4 years you were there, what impact do you think you had? What did you enjoy, and what were the challenges?
I think from an impact perspective, I did help drive quite a change in governance and culture that we went through with the governing body at that time. That really was needed, specifically with the relationship with the membership. What did I enjoy? I mean, I just really enjoyed the completely different world and content, and being part of something really meaningful to society and the country. I guess without stating the obvious, working in investment banking, isn't always gives you that side of the job. So it was hugely rich. I think the different content and the different people, each successful in their own different fields, coming together and learning from each other. On the challenges, it probably most specifically, actually, there was a huge change in the board membership. So in my 4 years, I experienced 4 different chairs, 2 CEOs, and a turnover of 13 directors. And I kind of was the last one standing from the group when I first joined the board. So I was stubborn and I wanted to see things through. And we were going through a huge amount of culture change, as I mentioned. And I kind of just dug my heels in a little bit to make sure that, you know, I tried to impact and influence that as much as I can. But that was the challenge. It's all about board cohesion and that group of people being as effective and working together as you can. And so whenever it's constantly changing, you know, it really does impact what you're trying to achieve.
Yeah. And obviously you've carried on working as you've done this and moved to handball. What do you think sports added to your corporate career? Because what's really important is that you've got to see the value add in terms of your day job. Otherwise, you just wouldn't manage it. So, what do you see? How has it helped you?
A bit, as I mentioned, while I sort of brought pace, I think, at the start, it definitely helped me develop and improve my own style. It slowed me down. It's made me appreciate more subtleties in influencing and achieving a consensus in a board setting, which has absolutely been transferable back into my environment here. And it differentiates you to your peers in your corporate career. You are seen in a different light. So I guess the point is you need to let people know about this other career you've got run along the side of your day job, and you are seen differently because of it. You know, it's a way of demonstrating ambition slightly less overtly than sort of just, you know, pushing up your own career path more obviously internally. On the content side, the corporate governance understanding that, of course, you have to learn very, very quickly has been hugely invaluable, especially as I've moved into different roles now in the organisation where I'm responsible for some of that governance for our businesses.
Okay.
And I think probably the surprising one that I never kind of had on the plan and had thought about when I entered into a board career was having gone through the journey and realised how much I've got out of it. I have sort of become this, I've set up a whole initiative internally in my firm to help other people do the same. which has led us to be able to be corporate sponsors with women on boards. It's created a whole swell of interest internally. And I'm really proud of the successes I've now seen of colleagues who've followed this same path and are out there and sat on other boards across the country. So that was a real, unexpected benefit of actually going and doing this myself.
Excellent. And we reap the benefits because obviously we're proud of the fact that we see you sitting on our panels, and then the next thing we see is you've moved, you're Chair of England Handball. So we'd love to hear a bit about how that came about, and why you said yes.
Well, I had to reply. Well, I suppose I was approached actually. So there's a subtlety in this one. So, whilst I'm obviously all an advocate for just the changing the way in which we recruit onto boards in order to make sure, you're getting the best talent, England Handball was an example where, and I almost felt cheeky, where I was approached and asked if I would apply. And it was completely through the Women on Boards network, where I met the Vice Chair of England Handball, Claire Henderson, who just encouraged me, just gave me that kind of personal reach out and said, I think you should apply. We're looking for an independent chair. Have a think about it. Without that, I don't think I probably would have looked at it, in all fairness, though I was ready for the next challenge. I was just coming up to completing my 4-year tenure at volleyball. I knew I wanted to move on to another kind of sport. And I guess I was looking at either a larger governing body to challenge me more, or potentially a different role. And that's where I guess the chair role suited, because it gave me something different and a different challenge. And specifically, I guess why the chair role was attractive is with my experience, as I sort of mentioned, of change on volleyball, I like the opportunity to be able to influence more directly, which I believe the chair role would give me that chance. And the handball v volleyball was also quite a good consistency of, a bit of an underdog sport in this country, but hugely successful in the rest of the world. So real parallels of how do we, take what is happening elsewhere across Europe, across the world, and keep trying to, bring that in and develop the sport here in England.
Okay, so with that chair's perspective, what do you see as the benefits for any sports organisation in trying to achieve better balance on boards?
I genuinely believe it's critical. There's proven research now of the increased success to any organisation when you have diversity. Most important at the top, then at the decision-making body, executive management, all the way down. It gives us access to a larger talent pool to pick from. It allows obviously much more richer, balanced decision-making. And probably most importantly, it's your chance to reflect your current membership and your future membership. Add to that then, making sure you've got an independence within your board as well as just diversity, and the richness of the discussion and the decision-making. It's just incredible. I've really seen that transformation on the handball ball where, I've pretty much, I inherited a board where a lot of people had hit their tenure. So I got the chance to rebuild it immediately. And, very proud to say I've got 6% women, 40% independent, 20% BAME, 20% multinational, and that reflects our membership. So it's, it was done deliberately with positive action, and we're reaping the benefits for it. We really are.
So I mentioned, I just threw in when I was talking about what I think the challenges are to getting balance. Have you got any additional thoughts on what the challenges are that sports organisations are facing to getting indeed what you've just described?
So I think I probably have a bit of a controversial view on that, in that I don't think this is a challenge at all. I think, having been involved in a couple of sports now, there's far bigger challenges for us all right now in sports governance and funding and growing our sport in this environment. For me, this is not the worry. This is about doing it properly. It's about having open, transparent recruitment. It's about running a very strict nomination committee process to mitigate against bias and really consciously taking positive action. So just like we all naturally do our skills assessment and gap to identify and target who we're trying to recruit onto our board, we need to give the same level of importance to your lenses of diversity. And then it's just, following structured scoring, interview approach, having the right level and balance on your nominations committee of independence and diversity. And, for me, it's just doing recruitment properly. This isn't a challenge. It just needs that little bit of effort, but it gives you huge benefits.
Thank you. I mean, that is really interesting to hear, because what you're basically saying is that there are many other things to worry about, and this should just be an embedded process.
Absolutely.
So, Samuel, I don't know whether now's a good time to bring in any Q&A. Do you want to take over?
Yeah, thank you, Rachel and Tracy. Really interesting perspectives. So just for the audience, if you have any questions, if you hover just below the presentation, you'll see there's a Q&A icon. If you click on that, you'll be able to type in any questions and we can get them answered. So just to fire off, I've got a few follow-up questions. The first is for Tracy. Really interesting just now. One of the things you said that I will keep with me is that it is important to reflect both your current and future membership. Just wondering, with England Handball, do you have any perspectives on what you aspire your future membership to be, and has that influenced your board recruitment strategy?
So for us, we're really growing massively in schools. A huge leap for us was getting actually part of the GCSE syllabus. And so the big growth swell that we want to focus on, especially driven around, I guess, how we're funded at the moment as well, is to progress that school piece. So actually, it drove a skill set of understanding the education sector, but also making sure we felt like we mirrored the different demographics of school. Now, of course, doesn't mean we can get school kids on the board, but we needed to look balanced. Yeah, and I am a true believer in how we look from the outside looking in is a real important factor.
Good. And then also, just wondering, with a lot of your senior colleagues, particularly the women, do you find that once they are engaged with the opportunity to join a board, it is actually not a very hard sell? That the main challenge is making sure they're aware that there are opportunities out there and their skills are transferable?
Yes, 100%. I mean, over my so since I've been running an initiative internally in my bank, which has probably been about 4.5 years now, I mean, tens and tens of women I've sort of, mentored through this process. And as soon as you get them excited, make them realise they're ready, their skills are transferable, and open the door to women on boards in terms of just getting the visibility of the board roles, it never goes from that point onwards. It doesn't mean they get the first one. And as Rachel said, you've got to keep, making sure they feel they've got the support if they hit hurdles. But I've never seen someone change their mind from it being opened into it's accessible.
Great. And we have a question for you before we go back to Rachel from Ian Wilson, who's asked, for the free VE NED, so I guess it was Volleyball England NED appointments, how many were female?
Just me, actually, yes. It was a lawyer, and second one was from the education sector, and the third skill they were looking for was change management, and that's the one that I went in on. Okay, great.
And so, Rachel, you have a lot of questions.
I know. I'm just okay. So I can see the questions coming in. So shall I? I'll answer them. I'll answer them live. So Margaret Blount has said, "How do you post vacancies on the WOB vacancy board?" Okay, so Margaret, you can. There are two ways of doing it, and this is obviously to tell everybody. It's very simple to post them yourselves. You just go on womenonboards.net, register as a free member, and then there's a post a vacancy page, and you just pop it up. I will then see it and have a look at it and approve it, and then it's live. The other way of doing it is you can just send it to me at rachel.tranter@womenonboards.co.uk, and I'll get it up there. So either post it yourself, I approve it, or if you're struggling or time short, you can send it through and we'll get it up there, and we'll make sure that our members are aware of it. Okay, so Chris Child has asked, are women on boards doing anything particularly to encourage more opportunities across all of England? So we are a UK-wide organisation, and we are based in London. But because we are a membership, we cover all of the UK. So, and funny enough, when we post roles, if we unless somebody specifically says they want somebody in Manchester or in London, we just put the UK, because we don't think that people should be, in this day and age, if you only have to attend in person 4 board meetings a year, you don't really need to live in the city where it's at. So yes, we are absolutely encouraging people to be mobile and to think about opportunities across. So not so much England, but obviously across the UK. We run the whole reason we do webinars is because we understand that people can't always get to the workshops that we're running, although we do go to the regions. We aren't just London. So hopefully that's answered that question.
There's one, sorry, on the other side, there's one from Michelle. It says, can you give information about Women on Boards membership costs?
Yes, I can. In fact, I've got a slide on that. Let me go to that. Okay, let me see where that is. So, yeah, I mean, obviously, I've got this. This is not a selling opportunity for me at all. It's for information. But seeing as the question is here, this basically summarizes, my slide summarizes, for an individual to join Women on Boards, to be an active subscriber, we charge £130 a year. What that enables somebody to do is have full access to the vacancies, so they can see the type of sports roles I highlighted earlier, but all roles. It's not sport, obviously. We are a multi-sector organisation. Discounts on events, we do charge for everything. Well, not everything, but most of what we do charge, but we make sure you get £130 back in no time. The key thing really, the 3 things you get for that annual membership of £130, it's the vacancies, it's somebody looking at your board CV. You write your board CV, you send it to us, and we say, yeah, that's great, or no, we still haven't got a clue who you are, we're not afraid of telling you that. And it's that vital connection piece when you're preparing for an interview. So if you go for a sports role, we can't guarantee, because I'll never guarantee, but I can't think of a time where we haven't found somebody for somebody to talk to. So that is the membership piece.
Great. And then Dan Newton has asked, when applying for board roles, how important is it to understand the people already on the board, as well as the skills that are required in the advert? What already exists on the board versus...
Oh, okay. It's vital. You have to do your homework before you apply. You need to know who's on that board. Even, notwithstanding if you tick all the boxes, if you're an accountant and you're looking, you think, yeah, I think I've probably got the skills. If you look on that board and there aren't any accountants, well, I would say, you're in a seriously good situation. If there are already 3 on there, then I'm questioning what they're looking for. It's really important. Understand who's on there, and also don't be afraid of connecting to somebody. Tracy, I think mentioned, you don't just, it's not just doing your homework. Don't be afraid of saying, I'd actually like to have a chat with somebody before I apply for this role. So doing that homework, knowing who's on that board beforehand is vital. Okay,
great. So there are 2 questions, but one is around how diverse Credit Suisse's board is, from Susie Christopher. I'm going to ask you to take that one offline with Tracy, maybe add on LinkedIn, and feel free to discuss that with her.
Yeah.
And the second question was around trans women, and that was by Leah Stone. Again, this is a good opportunity to say that our next webinar, which is actually next week at the same time, will be focused on LGBTQ plus individuals at board level within sport. Very grateful that we'll have with us Louise Inglefield, who is the Director of Pride Sport. And we'll also have John Boyd, who's the CEO of Baseball Softball. So hopefully, Leo, if you can log in next week, you'll have that question asked and hopefully answered too. Can I please take this opportunity to thank Rachel and Tracy for their excellent insights. This has been our first in a series of webinars. I hope you found it useful, and hopefully we'll have you again with us very soon. There was a final question, but we've run out of time by Chris Child.
I can answer it really quickly.
Okay,
yes, Chris is the simple answer. If you're looking for somebody local, then we will particularly put in the fact that it's local, and we can attempt to snap people in that region. So the best thing to do, Chris, is email me separately, send me roles, and we'll see what we can do. So it's rachel.tranter@womenonboards.co.uk.
Excellent, great. Enjoy the rest of your days, everybody, and thank you for logging in. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much.